Hello and welcome to Aha Moments. This one is based on the one that was originally released on May 1st called The Off Button. And as most Aha Moments, these are about shifting perspective. These are about those little flashes of brilliance or little nuances that just move you in a slightly different direction. They're empowering, enlightening, and they're important to have. I always say that we learn one aha moment at a time. I don't think every once in a while we may take some quantum leaps, or it feels like quantum leaps, but they're always aha moments. There are these messages that come in from someone or somewhere that somehow shift the direction, or we get something at a little bit deeper level, right? So this aha moment, the off button, I want you to stay with me here. It's a little bit longer than a normal aha, which we try and keep under a 60-second read. So this one's a little bit longer. However, and I want to make sure that we tie it together really well. So it's tough sometimes to take really comprehensive subject matter and put it into 60 seconds and make it make sense, right? So anyway, we're going to go through this together, and then we'll kind of unpack it a little bit just to make sure that we're totally on the right track, and that whatever that inference was for you, that it's going to be empowering. It will put you in the direction that you want to go. So again, not everybody's going to get the same aha necessarily, or that it's going to have the same impact. Everybody's on their own journey. Everybody is getting things at a different level, and whatever that means to you. But whatever that little spark is, it works, then perfect. That's exactly what's supposed to happen. There is no one right answer to this, right? Aha moments are purely all about you. So let me just call that up, and we are going to read that together. Again, called the off button. Here we go. Would you agree that repetition is the mother of learning? That the more you repeat an affirmation, the more you repeat a skill, or the more you repeat a behavior, the easier it is to follow? Sure. Herbert E. Krugman wrote why 3 exposures may be enough, and many advertisers followed it. He claimed that exposures beyond 3 were simply repeats of 3, and that even if you discontinue the impressions, there is no danger of people forgetting your ad. Thomas Smith wrote a guide in 1885 entitled Successful Advertising, claiming that it takes 20 exposures before a purchase is made. He suggests that an ad is not seen the first time, then it's seen, is argued, eventually becomes annoying, is questioned how the product producers can continue to even pay for the ad, then eventually the individual curses themselves for not having the money to buy the product, only to end up buying it in the long run. Jumping to today, with full-on media and our need to bow to it at every available moment, we hand over our minds from real to reality, and our lives are shaped thusly. Let me explain with an experiment Krugman did in 1969. He hooked up electrodes to the back of subjects' heads while they were watching television and monitored their physiology on a polygraph through 2 computers. Within 30 seconds, the subjects went from brains operating in beta, alert and conscious attention state, to alpha, unfocused and receptive state. Translation: media is the perfect tool to disengage and hypnotize you, in brackets, and used accordingly. Advertises messages excluded. When you park yourself in front of the screen, what are you seeing repetitively? In brackets, that's a trick question, because your subconscious mind sees about 10,000 images a second, so you're actually seeing everything. Maybe a better question is this: what are you becoming? Has digital life become more meaningful than real life? In a documentary James Corbett produced on media, he shares that we now have a blur between real and reality, and that our experiences are often not directly lived, but mere representations. To add to that, we mirror what we see naturally as a safety mechanism to fit in. Now, did you ever notice that many famous children's cartoons have orphans as the main character? Did you notice that many sitcoms take place in coffee shops or where alcohol is flowing? Did you notice that broken families, being overworked and not having enough money to make ends meet, is hailed as noble, where success is associated with deception and selfishness? Are we being tricked into accepting a normal that is not normal at all? Aha. Fix the cause, not the symptom. A quote by Steve McGuire. I tasked myself to a media audit years ago. My media time with respect to how it potentially influencing my behavior, results, and lifestyle. I've long been able to carry on conversations about popular shows or famous entertainers, but have a head full of documentaries by real life people who are difference makers. And I was reminded again last week of the true power of just being. My son and I enjoyed Bermuda, real-time experiences in nature, meeting with beautiful people, enjoying delectable food, and us having thinking and creating time, which brought on the most profound smiles, feeling whole and present. I'll borrow Corbett's closing words with a reminder that the off button is in your hands. So, through this, we talked about media. We talked about the number of impressions that media makes. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm, in front of the tube and I'm watching a sporting match, which is likely the only time I'm going to turn it on, and the commercials come on and there I see that progression that Thomas was talking about that I probably don't even recognize it the first time. And then as I go through, it becomes annoying. It's like, are they still promoting that stuff? Now, I have to admit, at the end of it, he says eventually that people do buy it. So he is in his successful advertising guide that he wrote, he was saying that eventually, enough impressions and you do bring people on side. And then to the contrary, we had Krugman, who said, no, 3 impressions are enough. If you watch anything from Darren Brown, who is a, he goes under a lot of titles of mentalist and, programmer, magician, and he has some absolutely phenomenal videos and experiments that he's done on human beings. And there's a few of them that we, within our Freedom from Self-Sabotage coaching groups that we can do together, we show those videos and we break them down and we talk about them. But I'm going to do a little bit of a spoiler alert, and I'm going to tell you that it does only take 3 impressions to have a substantial impact. And because here's the reason. Our mind is constantly looking for patterns. It's always looking to recognize things, and it's always looking for familiarity. We love, when you heard we're creatures of habit, we are, but we're also creatures of comfort. And it's the way that our brain is designed is to keep us safe. And if we have something that we recognize that's familiar and it's comfortable, we have already determined a level of safety within that. So when we put ourselves out of our comfort zone, that we're going to push ourselves to doing something that's a little bit different than what our mind recognizes being safe, especially if we're going to stand against the herd. We're going to take a stand. We're going to do something different than what everybody is investing in this, and you're going to invest in that. And everybody is saying, let's go along with that and rubber stamp that idea and let's propose that bill. And you're standing up going, no, 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 no. Anything that you do that is contrary to the herd will cause a disruption, not only with you and your physiology, but within the herd. So that's the safety mechanism that's built in, right? So our brain is always looking for those patterns. So when it sees the same thing over and over again, it's going to see it as being familiar. And eventually, whether it's we talk about product and I say, don't necessarily, I don't necessarily buy the product, and maybe you don't either. But the point is that familiarity will somehow make it true and will make it more comfortable for us. So oftentimes when advertisers use multimedia, so they don't just use online, they might use park benches and they might use billboards, they might use flyers, and they do other things. When you see that logo or that ad repetitively in especially in multimedia, or that even in conversation, or my strength is in promotional marketing, so it's ads on items that people carry around with them naturally, that a lot of people call merch or merchandise, and you put a logo, you put a message on that, you're seeing that thing potentially hundreds of thousands of times, as is everyone else around you. So the repetition in that makes it comfortable and makes it true. So when we have repetitive, when we started this AHA, we talked about, even if it is a repetitive, a mantra, that you have something that a behavior that you want to change, and you continually say something to yourself, eventually you will be comfortable with that. You will start to own that. Initially, you won't believe it, and you'll argue it, and it'll be everything that Tom has talked about in that progression of 20 steps. And eventually it's going to become natural. It's going to become second nature to you, and eventually you will adopt it. It will become your truth, right? So here's the bigger picture of this aha, and why repetition is so important to take note of, is that we talked about the media in terms of, what are you sitting in front of? So the tube, we already know that within 30 seconds you go into a trance state. That's with the television, with your computer, with going to the movies, and those who create programming are aware of that, or entertainment sometimes called entrancement. So they're aware of that. So everything that they're putting into those movies and those sitcoms and those, even the sporting matches that you're watching, very, very deliberate content. So we need to be aware of that. So if we stay in that beta state, we stay in that beta state where we are alert and consciously thinking. So when I'm watching a sporting match, for instance, I often have I'm often doing something else. I'm cooking, or have it on. If I have it on in the great room where I can see from, I'm doing meal prep or something, then I have the sporting match on in the background. Or I've become quite the podcast and video junkie. I mean, there's some amazing people that I'm following. It's very difficult to find the truth. You have to know where to look, and it's not going to happen on the mainstream channel. So it's very important to me to stay on top of that content. So often I have either my phone or my computer open. So so the sporting match is playing in the background. I'm not suggesting for a minute that to some degree I'm not being drawn in, because I absolutely am. That is part of what the tube does. Same with, as I said, the media in all kinds. So we're not exempt in terms of our phones, the movies, even music. Very, very deliberate messaging that's being put in with the music, with the tone, with the frequencies, with everything that's in the background. So remember this about the fact that we've talked about how many thousands and thousands of impressions that your mind's eye sees per second. It records absolutely everything. So whether your conscious mind or not is alert. And if you are going into that alpha state, you are going into that state of entrancement within 30 seconds. It means that you are very receptive to whatever it is that they are putting on. So if you're, how many times have we said, watch your TV time, limit your, online time and everything. There are very good reasons for that. And it's not just your exposure to the screen. It is your loss of ability to think for yourself, and the whole critical thinking, and being able to stand in your trust, your belief, and your power of being able to ask questions and make decisions for yourself. That is very lost when you are in an entranced state and you are in a state of subjectivity. So it is it can be weakening. So that's why we need to mind the amount of time that we spend in front of, whether it's social media or whether it's in front of sitcoms, breaking down some of them. And I mentioned in here about, coffee and alcohol being two of them. We need to be really clear that they are mind altering drugs, and they are addictive. They are not healthy for us in any capacity. And I'm not saying for a minute that, that I'm pure in a sense that I, won't indulge once in a while. However, we need to recognize those things for what they are, right? And we need to recognize, when I mentioned about a lot of the characters in the you go back in Disney, and a lot of them that now that I mentioned it, you're going to go, oh yeah, Peter Pan, oh yeah, SpongeBob, oh yeah, Bambi. All of a sudden it's going to, you're going to trigger, and you go, oh my god, Pippi Longstocking is like one after the other is going to come to mind. You go, oh my god, they were all like children that were somehow orphaned, left behind, something like that. So there's a reason for that, and that's a whole other big discussion. But point being, when there's very deliberate messaging that's being sent through the airwaves with videos, with television. And two of the ones are about toxins. They getting us hooked and making us feel that that we can't have a good day and we can't recharge without the toxins. And that's we just use your sense, and that that's not really the case. It's become very socially, not even I want to say I want to say compliant. That's the word that I want to say. I want to say compliant because it's not even acceptable, that's socially acceptable, but we become socially compliant in a way that that we can't start a day without coffee and we can't have a good time without alcohol. So that has just been, that's just the way it is. And that's not the way it is. So we need to question those things, and we need to question what we're watching that has instilled that in our mind's eye, and in our behaviors. And that's when I said that, you know, I started doing a media audit, and it was, and I really bore down on it about 3.5 years ago, because I was following not much, certain mainstream news channels, and I really started questioning them. Not uncommon for me to question in general. I do that all the time. And I think studying behavior and studying universal law and understanding sort of the enslavement that we've been in for a really long time, the more I study it, the more I get it, and the more apparent it becomes, the more dots I connect. And that's just like everybody who, you know, once you start to dig down the truth, you realize it's the same agenda with the same people and the same reason over and over again. And they're just doing it in lots of different ways to keep us, you know, from understanding who we are, and to keep us from using our power. So that really is the bigger agenda. So parking yourselves, understanding that repetition is the mother of learning. I think, you know, when I said that statement right at the beginning of the HA, I think we all agree to that, that repetition is the mother of learning. The more something is repeated, the more it is accepted by us, the more it becomes true, the less that we question it, right? So we need to be very careful of what is it that we are paying attention to, or even more so, allowing us to be entranced into and by. And, you know, and the number of times that we do actually question something, that we remember to question things, that we remember that even something like, you know, that you're sitting in front of the TV, that you're so used to popping on your favorite program. Now you're aware, because we have given you the experiment, and you can look it up yourself, given the experiment about you know, hooking up those electrodes and monitoring those waves. And this experiment was 1969. This was done a while ago. I'm sure there have been many of them that have done since then. Once you're aware of the fact that you're going to go into that entranced state, it's not unusual for people to enjoy that, in a sense of, you know, that's why you have a drink. That's why you sit in front of TV. That's why you go to the movies. That maybe even why you read a fiction book, is to somehow escape from whatever it is that your day is. But that's where we want to really, that's part of where the audit comes in. It's like, what am I escaping from? So, you know, the next video, we're going to talk about electricity, your electricity, and we need to be cognizant of what that electricity is, what it is that we're creating, how it is that we're generating our own currency, electricity, get it? And take some control of that. So yeah, it's let's allow ourselves to be entertained. Sometimes it is absolutely, you know, I won't say there's nothing wrong with it, but I just want you to be really aware of what those messages are. So, you know, every once in a while, I will watch a rerun of Frasier or something, you know, older shows that I did watch years ago. And now I can't, I'm just surprised, especially like the show Frasier. I'm surprised at the behavior in the shows now that I'm aware of it. And watching the coffee and alcohol, how they always have either a coffee cup or a drink in their hand. It's like, wow, their entire lives are run around, you know, meeting in that coffee shop, everybody comes in and out of the coffee shop. It's very normalized to be in the coffee shop. And then the next scene will be likely a little bit in the office, and then they'll be pouring the alcohol, right? So those are just a couple of things that I'll point out, and I point them out just because they are toxins. I mean, let's see them for what they are. You know, we can talk about packaged foods. We can talk about all kinds of stuff that are being repeated. In the last few years, we've had a lot of like statements being repeated, like trust the science, stay 6 feet apart, all kinds of things like that people didn't question. Because they were repeated so often, they just became normalized, right? So that's where we need to go back and look at, you know, what is it that is being repeated, and is it actually normal? You know, is it normal? Is it healthy? Is what's happening, you know, good for us? Whether it's individually or collectively. And think if it's good or bad individually, it's probably going to be good or bad collectively, because we're all human beings. We're all men and women, right? So anyway, I'm going to just quickly quickly look and make sure that I covered everything that I wanted to, but you know, just be aware, be very mindful, to fix the cause, not the symptom. And of course, be cognizant of the fact that that off button is in your hand. Okay, that is, you know, it's, well, I think to a certain degree we can recognize, and I'm very careful when I use that word versus blame, we recognize that there's a tremendous amount of outside influence that is programming us. And let's see that for what it is, and know that many times throughout the day, whether we're driving, whether we're in conversation, and we don't necessarily have to be in front of media, we could be behind the wheel. How many times have you driven and you've gone like 10 miles, and then you go, holy shoot, I don't even remember where I covered in the last 10 miles. You were in such a hypnotic state, probably in your thoughts, or listening to something on the radio, and you were on autopilot, right? Your body and your mind drove, you didn't in conscious attention. It could be in conversation, it could be, again, watching a sporting match, could be at a bar dancing. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can kind of put us into that state. Just be very mindful of what's around you. So what is it that you're repeating, especially if you're one to fall asleep to the TV? What is it that the TV has on? If you're one to have earbuds in and always be having music playing, be mindful of the frequency of that music. And I don't want to say that everything's bad and paint a negative picture. I mean, that's not the point of this. The point is just be aware that you are an electromagnetic being. You're always sending and receiving, and that you have the off button in your hand, that you are the one who can shut it off and be alert and go on to, you know, doing something else that maybe a little more supportive to what it is you want to accomplish and who you are as an individual, right? So to a certain extent, as I said, we can, we can be cognizant that there's a lot of stuff coming in that is programming, and then decide, is that working for me? You know, am I liking my results? What is it that I need to change? So, we all do that audit on a regular basis. We're all, work in progress, right? So that's all it is. That's all it is. We're all work in progress. Okay. So hang on to that off button, hang on to the on button. When you're on the on button, I hope that we're together and we're learning and growing together. So looking forward to seeing you in Human You and in the membership program, and definitely subscribe to Aha Moments. Okay, there's going to be other things that you'll get under that subscription, but Aha Moments are certainly part of the pivotal ones. I hope you're having a fabulous day, and I look forward to our next chat. In the meantime, succeed deliberately.